Hello from Prague, Czech Republic. I'm Karolina.
I'm Eliška.
And I'm Anna, and today we are here with Tomáš. Hello.
Hello.
And he's gonna tell us something about the changes in 1989. So, Thomas, tell me something about what's your view of the old communist system that existed in Czech Republic in 1989.
Well, my view about communist era, of course, it's critical because I spent almost 40 years in that system, which started in Czechoslovakia in 1948. I was born 1950. I experienced invasion of Russian troops to Czechoslovakia in 1968, and then the whole period of the so-called normalization, which finished with what we call Velvet Revolution in 1989. So my view is critical, and I would say that the my criticism is bound to three factors. First of all, a lack of democracy. I used to live in a system of one party, one dominating subject of political life. So this is, let's say, the main factor which led to unsatisfaction of Czech people. Second factor, probably for my personal life, very important, and those were obstructions in traveling. We were more or less forbidden to leave the country, to travel, and of course it was very painful for me in time when I was a student, when I was young. I really was passionate for traveling, and suddenly I had to stay at home because simply I couldn't get visa from our authorities. And a third factor, which definitely was critical for most Czechs, was really big inefficiency or inefficacy of our economical life. Simply, everybody in Czechoslovakia knew that people in the Western countries live in a better standard. There was sometimes very funny lack of various goods. For example, toilet paper was simply not in our shops. Exotic fruits, for example, was very seldom in our markets, and so on. So this is probably enough for your question about the criticism in communist Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, and what do you recall about the Velvet Revolution, and do you participate in this revolution?
Velvet Revolution, in our perception, is a peaceful transformation from communist system to democratic system. It was more or less outcome of various events which happened not only in Czechoslovakia, because you may know from your lessons of history at school that 1989 was a year of transformation in most countries of Eastern Europe. It started in other countries than Czechoslovakia, but the transformation in Czechoslovakia in November 1989 was definitely, let's say, attracted most of world attention, and I should say was very peaceful, and that's why it's sometimes called Velvet Revolution, because it was really very peaceful. Simply, there were no casualties, no people died, very few, no violent transformation. Yes. What was the second part of the question?
Did you participate in the revolution?
What do you mean by participation? I was really not in the head of the crowds, that's for sure not. When the, let's say, first protests started, and those were protests by Czech students who assembled on 17th November. November 17th is a day of, or at that time it was 50th anniversary of another protest of Czech students against Nazi occupation in 1939. So crowds of Czech students assembled at the campus of Charles University, and the students marched then to the city center, and this is how everything started. I was on that very day at home. I clearly remember that I worked with my brother-in-law on a reconstruction of our house. So we were just listening to the radio, and we heard about the first demonstrations. We heard about about rumors of death of some demonstrators. The next day, the weekend, I don't have special memories to the weekend, but on Monday, I think, started the crowds on the Wenceslas Square. I was still not there. I remember I had a lesson of Italian on that particular day, but when I came home, I remember I watched TV and there were pictures from Wenceslas Square, jingling of keys by crowds of people. And this was simply so attractive for me that I decided to go next day on Tuesday to the Wenceslas Square. And from that day I was present every afternoon when crowds of people, and let's say more and more crowds, and not only students, those were all levels of Czech society, intellectuals, workers, and so on, crowded on the Wenceslas Square, and the speeches were held by the leading members of Czech oppositions, of Czech dissidents, namely Václav Havel, playwright and writer, who later became our first democratically elected president. So from that week I, let's say, was quite active in attending these demonstrations. The crowds were more and more huge, and I remember that on the next weekend, and I do not recall now which day it was, the crowds were so big that the demonstration was called to Letná. Letná plain, which was a big place where really a million of people could assemble. So the crowds were cheering, were calling for democracy, were calling to finish the system of one party, and I think short then after also the Communist Party of Czechoslovakia resigned, and everything then, let's say, slowly turned to the democratic system, but there was still a long way ahead. So my personal role was really minimal, but I was there, I was in the crowds, and it was certainly very hard taking occasion for me to be in the crowds and let's say contribute to protest against the communist government.
Okay, thanks.
Did you follow the situation in 1989 in other countries, for example in Germany, Poland and Hungary?
Of course. As I said at the beginning, the revolutions started, in fact, in these eastern countries before the revolution in Czechoslovakia, and I was at that time much interested in international politics, and I of course witnessed the growing power of Solidarity trade union in Poland. I remember the escape of many East Germans through Prague to West Germany. I do not have so many memories to happenings in Hungary, but I remember that Hungarians dismantled during 1989 the fence on the border with Austria, and I remember that a lot of Czechs, Poles, but mainly East Germans fled through Hungary to the west to seek for freedom.
Did you have some interesting remembers of the time?
You mean memories of
Yes.
what happened in 1989? I have one special memory. I was biochemist. I studied biochemistry and I worked in the research institute. But I used to guide as a freelance guide over on weekends for Prague Information Service, and majority of my clients were Germans, because for both Germans, West and East Germans, it was a relatively short distance to Prague. They liked Prague as a historical city, and they liked Czech beer. So there were a lot of Germans coming to Prague, and I remember that at the end of September I guided one West German group through Prague Castle, and I asked them what they would like to see more in Prague, and the whole group expressed the wish to go to the West German embassy and to see and discuss with East Germans who assembled there in order to escape to the west. So we went down to the Lobkowitz Palace, and what I have seen there was really astonishing. There were crowds. The fairly large garden of the Lobkowitz Palace, which is a West German embassy in Prague, was just crowded by tents, crowded by East Germans. So my clients from my group, which I guided through the fence, discussed with them what they expect, how they want to get to the West Germany. It was still before the so-called Hof train, because West German foreign minister then negotiated the free train for East Germans from Prague to West Germany. So it was still before this decision, so there was much nervosity on both sides, and many East Germans were not yet sure what will be their next fate. But it was definitely a very interesting memory to what happened in 1989, and then on the way to Charles Bridge with that group, I remember that we saw really hundreds, if not thousands, of Trabants and Warburgs, the East German cars, because the East Germans on their escape to the west came from East Germany to Prague, and they led the cars wherever they could. They simply led the cars where they found some place, and they rushed to the West German embassy to fill really all spaces inside and outside in the garden.
This was sure a very interesting interview. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hello, I'm here with my uncle and I prepared with him interview about socialism in Czech Republic in 1989 and 1990. So, what happened in Czech Republic in 1989 and 1990 and why?
Yes, as everybody knows, it was a time of great political changes because the East European countries were led by communist parties, were governed by communist parties, and at that time, in 1989, this power was overthrown and exchanged by new political regime, by new political order. So the capitalism was reintroduced actually, was recovered, because before the socialist era we had capitalism before. And it was the time of the so-called revolution in the Czech Republic. We call it the Velvet Revolution. East Germany was reunited with Western Germany, and in the other countries, in other Eastern European countries, the political regime was changed from socialism to capitalism.
And how was it for you in their years?
At that time I was studying in the German Democratic Republic, East Germany, as some call it, in the town of Jena, at the University of Friedrich Schiller Universität. I was studying German language and literature. It was my last year, so I could see and experience all the changes in this country, and as I also went home for vacancies, I also could see the changes in my home country, but I didn't take part in any demonstrations, the Czech Republic, and neither, but I could follow it and see it, and for instance, we went immediately after the changes when the frontier was opened and people could cross the border to go to Western Germany and West Berlin. So I also took the chance and we went immediately after the night when the border frontier was opened to West Berlin, and we visited West Berlin.
And was it difficult for you to get there, to Germany?
Actually not so difficult. I was keen on learning foreign languages because my hobby was shortwave listening to radio stations on shortwaves from all over the world. So I learned a lot of foreign languages. At school I was studying German and English, and my German teacher said to me or recommended that I should go to study abroad to East Germany, and I applied for these studies abroad, university studies, and I had to go to a preparative school for foreign studies in a small town in central Moravia, where all the students interested, or all the students who were preparing for studying abroad had to go there and to do their last year of secondary school, was the grammar school. We had there intensive studies of German. We had a native speaker as our language, as our German teacher. There was a class of students who wanted to go to study to the Soviet Union. Some went to study to Poland, Bulgaria, and a lot of students, about 20-25 students, were preparing to study in the German Democratic Republic as me. So I did the last year of grammar school there, and then I had to pass an entrance examination at the Charles University in Prague for the profession of for my studies of German language and literature. I passed this entrance examination, and then I was delegated as a foreign student to go to the German Democratic Republic, to East Germany, to the Friedrich Schiller Universität, where I studied German language and literature. No, it was not so difficult to get there.
Yeah, and how this revolution affected development in Czech Republic?
So it's quite obvious, because everybody knows a lot about it. Before 1989 we had socialism in our country, and then the capitalism started to be reintroduced very slowly. Actually, we wanted to have the capitalism as we saw in Western Germany and Austria, in the neighboring countries, because the social securities were also granted in these countries, and we wanted to have a better life, to have more goods and more technology, computers, video recorders and so on. And we thought that we will have a better life, better economy, industry, that people can run their own businesses, and we still could have some social benefits we had, because we saw that in West Germany the people were granted these social securities. But slowly, in the course of 25 years now, the development, slowly the social securities were abolished, but we still have a good life. But it's not the idea of capitalism we had at that time.
Yeah. So, did you notice some differences, big differences between studying in Czech and Germany?
Actually not. The university studies are quite similar all around Europe, maybe in the world. I know there are bigger differences in elementary schools and secondary schools, but the university studies, the system of university studies, the courses and so on, the freedom of university teachers and students are nearly the same. I couldn't see any differences. Then I was a teacher at university in the Czech Republic too, so I can compare the two systems. I can't see any basic differences.
Yeah, so thank you for this interview with you.
Yes, it was a pleasure. You are welcome.
Hello everyone! Welcome to interview with my parents. They lived in time when it was Velvet Revolution and a lot of another changes. So, let's ask them some questions.
I am sorry because I am starting in English, so I will speak Czech. I study the Russian language. Na období sametové revoluce vzpomínám ráda to bude 27 let. Tehdy mi bylo 20. Byla jsem ve druhém ročníku vysoké školy ekonomické. Studovala jsem tehdy nevýrobní sféru a sociální rozvoj. A vlastně tyhle ty události nás zastihly v tom prvním semestru. Druhého ročníku. Když jsem si teď našla svůj index, bych si připomněla, tak si dobře vzpomínám, že vlastně to studium na vysoké škole obsahovalo takové předměty jako politická ekonomie kapitalismu, politická ekonomie socialismu, tí jsme se teda všichni docela obávali a ten předmět nám potom byl zrušen. Taky jsme měli předmět třeba dějiny komunistické strany, koukám. To jsem absolvovala v prvním ročníku, potom jsme měli mít ještě co jsme to tady měli v tom ročníku. Socialistický způsob života, to potom došlo tak, že ty předměty se potom škrtly. To už k tomu tak o té manifestaci jsem teda věděla, ale nemohla jsem se zúčastnit, protože jsem bydlela mimo Prahu. Tak bych se nedostala domů, protože tam nejezdila pražská doprava. Takže už jsem jenom potom večer v rádiu slyšela, že teda tam došlo k nějaké potyčce se státní bezpečností, ale jako rozhlas ani televize vlastně neinformovali přesně, takže ráno jsem šla na výuku a jelikož jsme měli tělesnou výchovu a to jsem měla na Vinohradech, tak jsem šla po Václavském náměstí ráno a u koně nahoře, tedy pomníku svatého Václava, který byl vždycky takovým centrem, tak tam už visely takové cedulky výzvy ke stávce a když odpoledne jsme přišli na výuku do hlavní budovy, tak už se nevyučovalo a vlastně trochu byl takový zmatek, že paní profesoři nevěděli ještě, jak mají zaujmout stanovisko, jestli mají vyučovat a my studenti jsme čekali, co se jako bude dít. No a tam začaly vlastně fungovat takový stávkový výbor, takže už tam nějaký ty letáčky, které vlastně vyzývaly k takovému jako mobilizaci těch studentů a vůbec letáčky takovýma informacemi, který vlastně televize, ani rozhlas, ani noviny neotiskovaly, protože vlastně ještě byly poplatné vlastně na co třeba ráda vzpomínám, že jsme měli takové setkání v aule, takový poprvé to bylo nemyslitelné, vlastně jsme se tam sešlo takové křesťanské společenství a bylo do té doby něco nemyslitelného. A taková nádherná atmosféra, kdy se tam zpívala taky taková píseň, která vlastně se zpívala i na tom Albertově, jednou budem dál, já vím. Tak prostě to bylo nádherný, že ta aula jako ty lidi jako měli k sobě blízko, což jsme doposud jako tak nějak neznali. Já říkám, že ty revoluční dny a ty události nás tak nějak spojovaly. Potom
What were the biggest changes after the fall of communism?
Political. This is democracy, free borders, economic changes. This is maybe privatization.
Yeah, thank you. And did you welcome free crossing of borders?
Yes, I did. This is a good idea, and now it's normal things in our lives.
Yeah, thank you. Did you welcome freedom of voting?
Yes, I did. It was in '99 and was big day for democracy in Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, and now the last question. How big was the part of students in changes in community according to you?
Yes, students started it all, and first in Prague, and in all Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, thank you.